Welcome to Wally Spark Reviews.
That's Wally with an E!
Hello and welcome to another one of my reviews. We're looking at the Hound 3699 Radon detector. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. One thing off the bat I've mentioned before in other videos, is when a item comes packaged very nicely. It's a good sturdy box. I know it's kind of trivial, but the better the packaging, it just makes me at least psychologically feel that the quality of the product is going to be better. Alright, comes with instruction manual, which I'll have to read and study and figure out how to work this thing, because I've dealt with these a little bit before and sometimes they can be tricky. Hopefully this one will end up being simple. Here's the unit itself. Here is the Hound 3699, and it's got a power button there. It's going to get power from a USB-C cord and plug, which it looks like they have supplied. They supplied the cord, but they did not supply the power adapter. But again, in this box, look, you can see nice thick cushion to keep it held in there and keep it from getting damaged. I mean, this just shows me that they're putting some, if they're going to put this much effort into the box and thought into the box, well, it's got to carry over to the product, you would think, wouldn't you? All right, let's put that aside. And there's not much we're going to get into right this moment, because ultimately I just got to bring this to my house, plug it in after I've read the manual a little bit and figure out how to turn it on correctly and see if there's any setup or whatever I got to do. As I was mentioning earlier about the quality of the box, which I know is trivial, I just thought I'd mention the quality of this 3-foot USB-C cable they put in there too, that this unit came with. It's nice braided, 3-foot long, good sturdy connectors at the ends. Anyways, when I plugged this in back here, I held the power button on so it would turn on, and realized that this was actually a rechargeable unit, so you don't need it plugged in all the time. And I had this running overnight, and it only used about 3%, 2 or 3% of the battery, so it should last over a month at least. I couldn't find it in the directions exactly how long the battery will last, and it's going to depend on some variations too, like the unit is on right now, but I don't have the screen on, so that's going to take the least amount of battery. If I press the power button back here, just click it, you see the screen comes on, and I noticed that when the screen is on, obviously the battery drains a lot faster, and your battery indicator is right there. If you can see that, it says 94% right on top there. Gives you the date and time. I just reset this a few minutes ago, so about 50 minutes ago. Gives you a little indicator down there of a fan going around, and you can't turn that off or on. It's just automatically there, so I imagine there's some kind of a little tiny fan inside here that's circulating the air, which I like. The last one I bought didn't have that, it's just stagnant. When I first turned this on, it had the date and time ready to be set up, which I had to do, which was real easy because this is a touch screen, which I like as well. And I'm just going to press this gray button here and go into the settings, and then we're going to go to date and time. That's what popped up on the screen when I first turned it on. I just had to set the date and time, and we were good. Now, one thing I noticed in here about setting the date and time is once you're done setting it, you press OK, and it says, do you want to reset the time and restart recording? That means resetting all of your accumulated data. And you don't have a choice here. If you don't press the checkbox and you X out, it doesn't save your changes. And if you do press the check mark, it's gonna save the time that you just put in and the date, but it's also going to reset all of your data, which I didn't necessarily like, but it makes sense because if you're resetting the time, then that's going to change the variables on the data. So it almost has to reset the data if you reset the time. But let's just click that real quick, and you'll see it's resetting it again. Data cleared, setting parameters. And when we go back to our home screen now, the default screen, which is accumulated ABG, the accumulated average, it reset everything. So that kind of sucks. If I go back in here to where the settings is, it has a retest button, and that is the same as resetting. Do you want to clear the data and restart recording? So it's got two different ways to reset the data. And yeah, I guess my thought here is that if the time gets out of whack, because all electronic devices do pretty much, if it gets 3-4 minutes ahead of the actual time or 3-4 minutes behind, you can't really adjust it without resetting the entire data. And I think that's just the nature of the beast. But I just thought I'd point that out. So be careful when resetting the time, because you'll lose all your data too. And if you got months of data in there, it's going to suck. Other than that, let me go back into the time and date. When I first went in here, I had to set this up. And it's very simple. It's all touch screen. And you can change the time or the date, all that good stuff. So yeah, very simple to do. I didn't save that because I rearranged the time to the wrong time. All right, and on your main screen here, sorry, that's not the main screen. I actually got to click the power button again once to get back to off, and then click it back on again to get back to my main screen. Once you're in here, obviously I have no data because I just reset this, but it's going to, if you hit that accumulated average, it's going to change the screen to a different readout. This is your 12-hour value. What's happened in the last 12 hours, last 24 hours, last 48 hours, last 96 hours, and then accumulated peak, which is going to show you down here the highest level of radon reading that you had in a allotted time. And the accumulated average is self-explanatory. It's the average radon reading in your accumulated time. So that's kind of cool. Now again, like I said, if you leave the screen on all the time, it's going to drain the battery a lot faster. But I suppose if you have it plugged in all the time, it wouldn't matter. But in my case, I'm going to use it remotely without the cord on it. And we're going to bring it in my house and let it run for a few days, and we'll check back and see what it's doing. So I had this running and testing in my house for about 15 days, 15 hours. As you can see, I have a flashing red number there. That's the PCI level, and it's at 4.512. Reason it's flashing red is because the EPA recommends that you consider mitigation if it's at 4 or above. I believe these numbers are pretty accurate because I used a let's call it a control unit, another unit placed right next to this one, and the numbers across the board on both of them were pretty much identical. So I'm going to assume that these are both giving me pretty accurate readings. And you can see if I press on the accumulated average, it brings me to that last 12 hours, last 24 hours. There it jumped to 6.107 the last 48 hours, 96 hours, and back to accumulated peak. Something that I mentioned earlier in the video, which I believe I made a mistake about, is what the accumulated peak is. And I thought that would be, logic would tell me that that was the highest reading that it had in the duration that you've tested for. But in fact, my levels never got to 16.56. What this appears to be is a total of all your averages. So if you added up your accumulated average and the last 12-hour number and the last 24, 48, and 96 number, if you add those all together, it comes up with your accumulated peak. I'm not really sure what that number is for. It doesn't mean that you had that high of a level ever. It just means that that's what they all equal, if all your averages equal, if they are total together. Not really sure what that's for, but it's there, and do with it what you will. So let's go ahead and move the camera around, and we'll talk a little bit more about this unit. So I really like this model. It's the best one that I've tested so far. As far as any radon detectors that I've tested in previous videos, they all seem to give you pretty accurate readings, so that's the most important part. But this one is so much more versatile. I like the idea that it has the fan inside there circulating the air that it's testing rather than being stagnant. It's a beautiful digital display with a touch screen. That's always a plus because I'm a techie guy and I like my electronics. It also gives you, as I mentioned before, that ability to use this wirelessly as well, or cordless, no power going to it because it's got a rechargeable battery in it. And I've ran this without the charger being plugged in to see how long the battery would last. So from full charge, it lasted me about 2 weeks. Probably give or take a day there, depending on how much you're looking at it during that time period and turning it on and displaying the screen. But yeah, about 2 weeks it ran without the battery. So it gives you that versatility of just being able to maybe test out an area and or a particular room for a couple days, just to kind of get an idea throughout your house where you may be seeing higher or lower levels at. And it can be placed anywhere. It doesn't have to be plugged in. It will last up to a couple weeks. But then again, you can plug it in and set it somewhere more permanently for months or years at a time to get a long-term average reading on it. So yeah, the fan, the ability to be flexible of using a power cord or not, the digital display, the touch screen. These are all pluses in my book. This is by far the best one I've tested so far that I like personally. But again, the other ones that I've tested give you a good reading, so it just may be a personal choice. This one is going to cost you a little bit more, but I think it's worth it for the features that it has on it. So that's it. The only other thing that I want to mention is that you saw that my PCI level was a little bit higher than what they recommend. This is going to be a personal choice. You're going to have to do some research and decide if you need to spend the money and get a mitigation system in your house, if it's reading, over 4 or not. There's a lot of controversy back and forth between radon, and I'm not an expert on it, and I don't want to give you any advice either way. Just use your best judgment, research it a little bit, whatever you need to do. If yours is reading 4 or higher, then you may want to consider a mitigation system, but maybe not. I don't know. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I will leave a link in the description of where you can pick one of these up at.